Marcus and I walked in silence across campus, each step building tension rather than releasing it. The evening air carried autumn's edge, not quite cold but hinting at the chill to come. He led us to a stone bench in a quieter corner of the quad, partially sheltered by an ancient oak that had probably witnessed generations of student secrets. "This is as good a place as any," he said, sitting but leaving careful space between us. I settled beside him, oddly conscious of the physical distance, a tangible manifestation of the emotional barriers he maintained. "You don't have to explain if you don't want to." "I do want to," he said quietly. "But wanting and being ready aren't always the same thing." A group of students passed nearby, their laughter momentarily disrupting our private bubble. Marcus waited until they moved beyond earshot before continuing. "2 years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition," he said, each word measured. "It's chronic but manageable with the right medication. Sometimes I have flare-ups that are difficult." The deliberate vagueness wasn't lost on me. "That's what happened with the gallery opening? The phone call?" He nodded. "My doctor called about some concerning test results. I'd been pushing too hard, ignoring warning signs. Classic Marcus, according to Tyler." His attempt at a smile fell flat. "I've been dealing with a mild flare-up since then, hence the cancellations." "Why not just tell me?" I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. His gaze fixed on the distance. "Because once people know, everything changes. I become the guy with the health condition rather than just me. My accomplishments get asterisks. My limitations become everyone's focus." "I wouldn't do that," I said gently. "Maybe not intentionally," he conceded. "But it happens. It happened with my father, with the department chair, even with some friends. Suddenly everything gets filtered through this new lens." He looked at me directly then. "I didn't want that with you. I liked how you saw me, my work, my ideas, without that filter." The vulnerability in his expression struck me more deeply than any words could have. Here was Marcus Westfield, talented, accomplished, seemingly untouchable, revealing the fear that lived beneath his carefully constructed exterior. "I still see you the same way," I said. "This doesn't change anything important." "Doesn't it?" he challenged softly. "What about the gallery rooftop? Would you still have wanted that moment if you'd known I might have days where I can barely get out of bed? That sometimes I cancel plans not because I'm busy, but because I physically can't make it." The question hung between us, demanding honesty I wasn't sure how to provide. "I don't know," I admitted finally. "Not because of your condition, but because I'm still figuring out what I want from this." I gestured vaguely between us. "But I do know I want the chance to figure it out." Something in his expression eased slightly. "That's fair. More than fair." "So where does this leave us?" I asked. "Cautiously moving forward," he suggested, a hint of his usual confidence returning. "With better communication on my part." "I can work with that," I agreed, relief lightening my chest. We didn't discuss the almost kiss again that night, but something had shifted between us. A layer of pretense stripped away, leaving something more honest in its place. As we walked back toward the dorms, our conversation gradually returned to art and classes, but with new undercurrents of understanding flowing beneath the familiar topics. The next morning, Professor Rivera's critique session loomed with its usual blend of anticipation and dread. The department's informal critique spaces always reminded me of Roman colosseums, observers eager for either triumph or blood, preferably with dramatic flair. I'd arrived early to set up my project with Vivian, who had prepared our presentation with military precision. "You're distracted," she observed bluntly, adjusting the lighting on our piece for the third time. "Focus, Chin. Rivera notices everything." "I'm focused," I lied, glancing toward the door where students continued to filter in. No sign of Marcus yet, though he'd texted that he planned to attend. Since our talk the previous evening, I'd found myself even more attuned to his presence or absence. "Your eyeline suggests otherwise," Vivian sniffed. "If we lose points for presentation because you're mooning over Westfield, I will personally ensure your next project includes actual thumbtacks in uncomfortable places." Before I could respond to this creative threat, Rivera swept in with her usual dramatic timing, instantly commanding the room's attention. Senior critique volunteers first, then we'll move to the first-year showcase possibilities. 3 senior projects received Rivera's surgical assessment, each evaluation revealing as much about her standards as the work itself. Throughout, I kept glancing toward the door, worry increasing with each passing minute of Marcus's absence. Finally, as the 3rd senior finished gathering their thoroughly dissected project, the door opened and Marcus slipped in. Even from across the room, I could see something was wrong. His normally perfect posture was slightly hunched, his complexion pale beneath a light sheen of sweat that suggested fever rather than exertion. Tyler, seated near the front, turned at his entrance. His expression shifted from welcome to immediate concern. He rose as if to help, but Marcus gave a small head shake, making his way to an empty chair along the wall. "First years," Rivera announced. "Cruz and Chin, you're up." Vivian launched into our presentation with polished confidence while I managed the visual elements. Our negative space project had evolved into a layered installation where fragmented forms created complete images only when viewed from specific angles, my organic fragments complementing Vivian's precise technical execution. Rivera circled our work, expression unreadable. "The technical integration is exemplary," she finally noted. "Cruz, your precision serves Chen's conceptual approach effectively. Chen, your understanding of perspective-dependent narrative shows progress." Coming from Rivera, this was effusive praise. Vivian practically vibrated with satisfaction beside me. "Questions from the group?" Rivera prompted. Several hands rose, but my attention was drawn to Marcus, who had straightened suddenly in his chair, one hand gripping the seat edge. His face had lost all color, eyes unfocused. Before anyone else noticed, I saw him sway slightly. I stepped away from our project mid-question, ignoring Vivian's hissed admonishment. Tyler had noticed too, already moving toward Marcus, but I reached him first. "Marcus," I said quietly, kneeling beside his chair. "What's wrong?" "Just dizzy," he murmured, his voice faint. "It'll pass." But it clearly wasn't passing. His breathing had become shallow, his grip on the chair white-knuckled. "You need to go to the health center," I said, no longer caring about the attention now turning our way. "No," he protested weakly. "I'm fine." "You're not," Tyler interjected, arriving at his other side. "This is worse than last time." Rivera appeared before us, her usual imperious manner replaced by efficient concern. "Westfield, Health Center. Washington, continue the critique discussion. Chin, assist Westfield." The clarity of her commands broke through the moment's tension. With Tyler's help, I got Marcus to his feet, supporting his weight as we made our way toward the door. Behind us, I heard Rivera smoothly redirecting the class's attention back to our project, but quiet murmurs followed us out. In the hallway, Marcus leaned heavily against the wall, eyes closed. "This is exactly what I didn't want," he said, frustration evident despite his weakened state. "Public collapse as performance art?" I attempted humor to mask my growing concern. "Being seen as fragile," he corrected. "Needing help." "Everyone needs help sometimes," I said, offering my shoulder for support. "Even the great Marcus Westfield." He attempted a smile that looked more like a grimace. "The health center's going to call my father." "One problem at a time," I urged. "Walking first, parental confrontations later." The campus health center was mercifully close. By the time we arrived, Marcus had regained some color but was clearly still unsteady. The reception nurse took one look at him and immediately ushered us into an examination room, bypassing the usual waiting process. "Marcus Westfield," she noted, checking her computer. "You're flagged in our system. Dr. Patel wanted immediate notification if you came in." "I'll page her." After she left, Marcus sank onto the examination table with a sigh. "Flagged in the system. Perfect. What does that mean?" I asked, taking the visitor's chair beside him. "It means they're monitoring my condition," he explained reluctantly. "I had a more serious episode last semester. Since then, they're extra cautious." "Last semester?" I echoed. "How often does this happen?" "Full collapses like that?" "Rarely," he said. "Bad days?" "More often than I'd like to admit." I've gotten good at hiding it. Too good, I observed. Is that why Tyler watches you like a guard dog? A hint of genuine smile touched his lips. He appointed himself my unofficial health monitor freshman year. Before I was diagnosed, he was the one who forced me to see a doctor when I kept dismissing symptoms as overwork or stress. Before I could respond, the door opened to admit a petite woman in a white coat, her expression both professional and familiar as she greeted Marcus. Not following our management plan, I see, she said without preamble, checking his chart on her tablet. Nice to see you too, Dr. Patel, Marcus replied, the easy exchange suggesting an established relationship. Symptoms? She prompted, already taking his blood pressure. The usual. Fatigue, joint pain, dizziness. It got worse during class. Because you've been skipping medication doses, she surmised. And pushing yourself despite the warning signs I specifically told you to watch for. Marcus at least had the grace to look chagrined. The showcase deadlines will not matter if you end up hospitalized, she interrupted firmly, which is where you're headed if you continue ignoring your limits. I sat quietly during this exchange, feeling simultaneously intrusive and protective. Dr. Patel seemed to notice me for the first time. And you are? She asked. Eliot, I answered. Friend. One who knows about his condition? She asked directly. As of recently, I confirmed. She nodded approvingly. But he needs people who understand what he's dealing with. Turning back to Marcus, she continued her examination, asking specific questions about medication compliance and recent symptoms. I tried to follow the medical discussion, gathering that Marcus's condition involved an overactive immune system that sometimes attacked his own tissues, leading to inflammation, pain, and fatigue. The flare-ups could be triggered by stress, overexertion, or inconsistent medication, all of which, it became clear, Marcus had been guilty of recently. I'm giving you fluids and anti-inflammatories, Dr. Patel finally announced. And you're on restricted activity for the next 72 hours. That means no darkroom time, no all-nighters, no pushing through exhaustion. Rest, regular meals, and consistent medication. Marcus started to protest, but she held up a hand. Non-negotiable. Unless you'd prefer admission for observation? Fine, he conceded. But I'll have the nurse set up the 4. Your friend can stay if you'd like. With that, she exited as efficiently as she'd arrived. Once we were alone again, Marcus leaned back against the examination table with a sigh. So now you've seen the full Marcus Westfield experience, medical edition. It's almost as entertaining as the gallery opening, I said lightly, hoping humor might ease his evident discomfort with the situation. He studied me thoughtfully. You're still here. Where else would I be? Most people get uncomfortable with the reality of chronic illness, he said matter-of-factly. They either disappear or start treating you like you're made of glass. I'm not most people, I reminded him. Besides, I grew up with a mother who worked 3 jobs with chronic migraines. Illness doesn't scare me. Something in his expression softened. Thank you. For staying. For not making this more awkward than it already is. What are friends for if not to witness your spectacular class exit? I asked. Though Vivian may never forgive me for abandoning our critique. Rivera seemed impressed with your work, he offered. Before my dramatic interruption. We worked well together, surprisingly, I admitted. Though I'm still working on her additional assignment, the vulnerability piece. How's that coming? Slowly, I confessed. I keep overthinking it. Vulnerability requires stopping the overthinking, he observed. Just feeling instead of analyzing the feeling. Says the guy who hid his health condition because he overthought how people would react, I pointed out. He laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his tired features. Touché. Maybe we're both works in progress. The nurse returned then with the 4 supplies, efficiently setting up the drip that would deliver fluids and medication. Once she'd left, Marcus shifted to make himself more comfortable, grimacing slightly at the movement. You don't have to stay through all this, he said. It'll take at least an hour. I don't mind, I replied honestly. Unless you'd rather be alone? No, he said quickly, then more measured. No, I'd like the company. If you're offering. Something about his willingness to express that preference, small but significant, felt like another barrier dissolving between us. We talked while the 4 slowly emptied, about classes, about his father's likely reaction to another health center visit, about Tyler's protective friendship. Gradually, as the medication took effect, Marcus's color improved and his voice strengthened. By the time the nurse returned to remove the 4, he seemed much more like himself. Remember, 72 hours of restricted activity, she reminded him, handing over discharge instructions. Doctor's orders. Outside, the afternoon had faded toward evening, campus lamps illuminating pathways through early autumn darkness. Marcus stood for a moment, seeming to test his stability before taking a full step. Better? I asked. Much? He confirmed. The wonders of modern medicine and fluids. We walked slowly toward the residence halls, a tacit agreement to maintain a gentle pace without directly acknowledging it. When we reached the fork where our paths would separate, his dorm to the north, my apartment to the east, he paused. Thank you, he said simply, for today. For not making me feel like a case study or a problem to solve. You're welcome, I replied. Though fair warning, Zoe will demand full details, and she's surprisingly knowledgeable about autoimmune conditions from her WebMD deep dives. That earned another smile. I should get back. Dad's probably already called 3 times. Text me when you're settled? I requested, then added, I'd like to know you're okay. Something in his expression shifted, the careful distance he usually maintained giving way to something warmer, more present. I will. He turned to go, then stopped, decision visibly forming in his features. Before I could guess his intention, he stepped closer and kissed me, not tentative or questioning like our almost moment on the rooftop, but deliberate and certain. His lips were warm against mine, one hand coming up to rest lightly against my jaw in a touch that felt both gentle and grounding. When he pulled back, his eyes searched mine with rare vulnerability. I've been wanting to do that since the gallery rooftop. Maybe since you almost destroyed my tripod. My brain struggled to catch up with what had just happened, coherent thought temporarily replaced by the lingering sensation of his lips and the warmth of his palm against my skin. Worth the wait, I finally managed, earning a pleased smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Even with the medical drama prologue? He asked, a hint of his earlier insecurity returning. In answer, I closed the distance between us again, my hands finding his shoulders as I returned his kiss with equal certainty. Around us, other students passed by, but for that moment, they faded into irrelevance, background details outside the frame of what mattered. When we separated again, the campus lights cast his features in warm gold, shadows softening into something that felt like possibility rather than barrier. Behind him, the botanical garden glowed with strategic illumination, creating pools of light among carefully tended autumn blooms. Walk with me a little longer, he suggested, nodding toward the garden path. I'm not quite ready to deal with real life yet. We entered the garden together, following winding paths between sculptural plantings. In the eastern sky, the faintest lightning suggested dawn wasn't far off, night beginning its gradual surrender to morning. We found a bench near the garden's central fountain, its gentle splash creating private space within public grounds. So, Marcus said after we'd settled side by side, his shoulder warm against mine. This complicates things. In good ways, I think, I offered. Even with the health stuff? The canceled plans, the bad days, the medical appointments. I considered his question seriously, knowing glib reassurance wouldn't address his genuine concern. My mom used to say that everyone has their complications. Some are just more visible than others. Yours happen to involve medication and occasional health center visits. Mine involve overthinking everything and putting up walls. Quite the pair we make, he observed with a hint of wry humor. Maybe that's why this works, I suggested. We recognize each other's complications without needing to fix them. He was quiet for a moment, his gaze on the gradually lightening sky. I like that perspective. Very artistic of you. I have my moments, I agreed, feeling oddly at peace despite the day's chaos. As we sat watching dawn slowly reclaim the sky, Marcus's hand found mine between us, fingers interlacing with casual intimacy that felt simultaneously new and familiar. Whatever was beginning between us carried no guarantees. His health uncertainties, my emotional hesitations, the looming reality of his senior year and eventual graduation all waited to be navigated. But in that moment, as first light touched the garden's carefully tended beauty, those complications felt less like obstacles and more like the necessary contrast that gave meaning to the composition of our developing story. Like the lighthouse photographs I'd admired at his exhibition, the same subject transformed by different lights, each perspective revealing new truths without invalidating the others.